was 6 years old. Every night after supper, I'd say goodnight to my parents and go to bed. My room was at the other end of the house. I had to go all the way down a long, dark corridor, lined with doors on either side. I used to be terrified. Every half-open door I passed was a threat, concealing obscure dangers. That's probably where my nightmares were born.
Along with this, Argento got ideas for his filmmaking from his close-knit family telling Italian folk tales for bedtime stories. As well, Argento's thrillers are based on childhood trauma, yet his own was a normal one. Along with the tales told by his family, he was also influenced by stories from the Grimm brothers, Hans Christian Andersen, and Edgar Allan Poe.
I started work as critic in newspaper, Roman newspaper.
And then Argento started his work in the giallo genre. Giallo means yellow and is synonymous with the genre of Italian literature and films from the early 20th century. They are a special Italian horror thriller that have detective elements. With this in mind, he has acquired a very prominent style that is revealed through composition, lighting, camera movement, and special visual techniques. His style is revealed through composition by allowing the setting to be very prominent in many shots, with the use of extra wide shots. Also, he likes symmetry and architecture to be prominent. His style is revealed vividly through lighting, which is also a trope of his. This is exhibited through his extreme use of color with the technique of Technicolor in Suspiria. The extreme vibrant primary colors are a staple in these films. He uses the color to convey the mood. With Suspiria, the natural was left behind to achieve a totally artificial style. The camera work creates a sense of unreality. Argento, to create this, used techniques of almost always keeping the camera moving, employing numerous dolly and crane shots to give the film its dream-like imagery. To create the vibrant blues and reds, Argento took massive carbon arc lights and stretched colored fabrics over them. This allowed the vivid primary colors and allowed him to get closer to the actors, flooding the whole frame with color. On top of that, he used 3-strip Technicolor. Also, Argento uses tracking shots and pans of left to right to reveal scenery and important objects, or to communicate a tonal shift, which you can look for in our film. Some of Argento's most praised films are Suspiria, as already mentioned, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and Inferno. Suspiria is a very surrealist film, with emphasis on absurd imagery and dreamlike symbolism to challenge the traditional function of art to represent reality. There is also a very German expressionist approach to set architecture, in which the high, impossible ceilings envelop the character. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is very neo-noir, with very melancholic moods, an oppressive atmosphere, a femme fatale, snappy dialogue, low-key, single-source lighting, and shots in a murky and dark street, quite opposite than his other works, a departure. As well, Inferno has a lot of aspects of Italian neo-realism. The plot is extremely non-linear and is really not a plot at all, more of a series of events strung together. Also, he works in real locations with real people. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is his first work, and Suspiria follows a few films later. Suspiria and Inferno are part of the Three Mothers trilogy, loosely connected by a mythological MacGuffin connected to the Three Mothers. The final in the trilogy is the Mother of Tears, separated by 27 years from the previous installment. Some other notable films by Argento are The Cat o' Nine Tails, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, Deep Red, and the Stendhal Syndrome. Also, Argento really enjoys to emphasize setting. This includes the emphasis of architecture of the buildings in the setting and the fine details and symmetries of the rooms present in the films. Argento's lighting and color composition style highlight this emphasis of architecture and symmetry. The colors he chooses to illuminate the setting with have a large effect on the beauty of the architecture, as well as the mood of the setting. He can create a Cordel mise-en-scène or a Grimm mise-en-scène from the same piece of architecture or scene with just a change in lighting. Some similarities Argento has in his style setting with films we have viewed in class is with Kubrick. These two filmmakers both emphasize the symmetries and fine details, as well as have fixations and emphasis on primary colors in their settings. Also, Kubrick uses very exaggerated performances, and so does Argento. A trope and motif of Argento is his close-ups of eyes and hands, frequently of those of the killer. This trope directly relates to the tropes of Iñárritu's and Alfred Hitchcock's. Argento has such a fixation with hands that he is always the hands of the killer. The eyes are usually at the beginning of the film, and the hands closer to the end climax with the murders. Watch for this motif and trope in our film. Another trope is that the main character is usually involved in an artistic profession, like writing or music. As well, with connection to Polanski, his protagonists are usually American or English tourists somewhere in Europe who witness a violent crime at the beginning of the film and proceed to be threatened by and try to foil the villains. This sentence could be the plot summary of The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And finally, with Argento's most prominent trope, his main theme becomes prominent as well, gimmicks for shock factor. This auteur's trope is very prominent when it comes to Argento's style. His films being part of the giallo genre is a large reason for this trope, and it causes any film of his to be labeled immediately in Argento. This connects to the theme of emphasizing stereotypical human phobias, as he portrays fears like the dark, the supernatural being real, the mystery of what's watching in the shadows, the possibility that anyone could be a killer, and death, through extreme gimmicks. Thus, Dario Argento is an auteur with every sense of the word. He has created a style for himself and uses his tropes to bring his films to life.